Do we need expansions? Let's talk about it. Hi everybody, my name is Nick Murphy. I'm one half of the Bros Murph, and a couple weird things. One, I'm in my weird loft, my apartment, and yes, I do refer to it as my weird loft because it's kind of weird. It's above my living room. It's got this weird railing and a very low sloped roof. You can't really stand up here. But fun fact, this is where I learn games. If I have to learn games for a stream or something like that, I tend to come up here and learn them because I don't know, it's just, I don't know what else to use it for. But nonetheless, I am here at my place because I unfortunately got COVID. I'm fine. I was only sick for a couple days, but I am still testing positive. And since we have a newborn at Mike's place, we are playing it safe. And I have been here for about a week. But nonetheless, I was like, I can do a metagame minute anyway. And this week I want to talk about expansions. Do I need an expansion for a game? It used to be back in the day when we first started board gaming that I used to get significantly more excited for an expansion to a game I like than for a new game. And that has definitely changed over time. At this point, I'm generally much more excited for new games completely than I am for expansions for my old games. And I think one of the main reasons is I've come to realize just how seldomly we get to play games. We play a lot of games, but we don't play a lot of games multiple times. We just don't have a chance to. Mike and I tend to play a lot of different games rather than the same game over and over again. And so we don't generally get to play the expansion, especially if it's not an expansion that we're always going to play with. And some expansions are that way. We're like, cool, we'll just never ever play the normal way again. But some of them aren't like that, or some have multiple modules. They're a big module expansion. And so sometimes you're like, I don't necessarily want to play with all the modules, but realistically, how often are we going to get through all those modules? And do we need an expansion? Like, have we played this base game enough to warrant an expansion? And even if we have played the base game enough to warrant an expansion, is it better just to get a whole new game rather than get an expansion that will breathe some new life into a game? Now, I want to say that I don't think this discussion has anything to do with publishers. Publishers are going to make expansions for their games. They are businesses who are trying to make money, and if they have a popular game, they are going to make an expansion for it because that will make them more money. And I think that is totally right for them to do so. And if I was a publisher, I'd be doing the exact same thing because of course they should. They're trying to make money. And so that's not where this debate is, whether these expansions should get made. I'm just kind of having, I use metagame minutes as a way to think about the way I think about board games, basically. And so I don't know. I think for me, basically the question I want you to answer down in the comments is like, when does a game need an expansion for you? Is it because the game isn't complete yet and this kind of expansion completes the game? Is it because you've played out a game? At what point do you want an expansion for a game? Or is it just, hey, I like this game, I want an expansion for it? Because I definitely still fall under that category sometimes. Arc Nova has an expansion coming out. I don't necessarily think Arc Nova really needs an expansion in the base game. I think the base game is plenty full. I definitely have not explored everything in there, but you better believe I'm going to buy that expansion day one it comes out because I really like that game. And so there's always that, right? Like, hey, I want an expansion because, dang it, I like this game. And so I think that's totally fair. But like, if we're taking away that part of it, when does a game really warrant an expansion? And more important, thinking about it, I kind of don't know if they do. I guess for me, it comes down to like, will that expansion get played and how seamlessly does it go into the game? I will say this at this point, for me personally, for the most part, I'm not really interested in an expansion that I won't always play with. There are certain games, again, like I said, where it's like, cool, I will just always play with this. An expansion that makes sense to me was like the Expedition Leader expansion for Lost Ruins of Arnok. That's a deck building game where everyone starts off with the same deck, so it makes sense to give everyone variable player powers, a new deck to start with. That makes sense. I will never, ever play that game without the Expedition Leaders expansion. So that expansion to me makes a lot of sense, and boom, easy buy, will never, ever play without it. But if it's not an expansion that I will never play without, I just don't know if I need that many expansions anymore. I'm also more and more impressed by games that just don't have an expansion. Like, I think it's like, especially in board games, is like this kind of weird flex. Like, we talk about Clans of Caledonia a lot. We talked about it in our last Rapid Reviews. And Clans of Caledonia more and more is like such an impressive game. One, because I really liked the game, but then two is because it comes in a very reasonable sized box and it doesn't have an expansion, at least not one that we're aware of. And I don't know why it doesn't have an expansion. Maybe it didn't sell well enough to warrant it or something like that, but it just doesn't have an expansion and it doesn't feel like it needs an expansion. It's fine how it is. And for some reason, the fact that like Clans of Caledonia is one of my favorite games and it just flexes on like the rest of the industry by not having an expansion, I don't know, it just makes me like it more. So 2 things down in the comments I want you to put. When do you want an expansion for a game? Is it because you've outplayed it? Is it because you just need more content? When does a game need an expansion? And what's your favorite game that doesn't have an expansion? And not necessarily like doesn't have an expansion, but really, really needs, like, no, just it's fine on its own, doesn't have an expansion, it's just flexing on the industry. Let me know down in the comments below. Hopefully next time you see me in a Metagame Minute, I'll be back at the studio, but thanks for hanging out in my weird murder loft. I appreciate you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much for watching that Metagame Minute. Down in the comments below, again, make sure to let us know what game do you love that doesn't have an expansion, doesn't need an expansion because it's strong and independent and it's wonderful. We want to give a big shout out to Lucky Duck Games, Board Game Geek, and Restoration Games for being the channel sponsors of the Brothers Murph. We want to give a big shout out to Chris Thorstad and the whole Thorstad clan because they're absolutely amazing and they're sponsoring the Brothers Murph for the month of September. And Baby Bjorn is the greatest thing to happen to the world. Baby Bjorn is amazing. At some point, Baby Bjorn won't be a baby anymore, but it's like the Righteous Gemstones where, you know, Uncle Baby Billy, it's like that. That's how Baby Bjorn is going to be. Nonetheless, thank you so much for watching this Metagame Minute, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.